6:30, I'd like to start the open session portion of our February 27th meeting. First on the announcements, under first public announcement, we have with us Jan Prowell from the 300th Anniversary Committee to give us an update. Jan.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back again. We're hoping to do this at the Selectmen's meeting every time we have one. Just a little bit of an insight. This again is our 300th year. We celebrated on June 10th of 2012. We've had some great functions already this year. We had a trivia night in January. Our gala is this Saturday, and it's very, very well received, and about over 300 tickets sold. The one thing we do want to bring up at this little segment right here is our commemorative book. The writings are pretty much done. They're putting it all together right now. We want to remind residents, individuals, families, businesses, organizations that the deadline for ads in the commemorative book is March 15th, 2012. So it's only a couple of weeks away. So anyone that wants to put an ad in the book, it will still be here 100 years from now. We just opened up a time capsule 100 years ago with books from 1912, so we'd like to be able to include some of those. So just keep that aware, that's one of the things that's going on right now. Maren is giving great coverage for anyone that wants an application for an ad. You can find them right downstairs in the town hall, or send us an email, pick up a business card downstairs. So each time we meet, we're just going to kind of give you a little bit of an update. That's the crisis right now, is the calendar book for anyone that wants to place an ad.
Jan, on people that place the ads, are they giving, going to send back to the person who donates a proof as to what the ad will look like? Or?
Yes, everything goes through Nicholson Design. Irene Nicholson will be sending a PDF proof. For those that don't have the capability of computer or anything like that, they will be able to go to her office and she will make arrangements with them to see them before anything is done. Because some of them are not a file that's been supplied, like I know in yours and stuff like that. They're something that we're designing.
Right.
And everybody will see everything before anything goes in the book. And
Thank
you might even see the whole page layout.
Thanks.
So terrific. So that's just keep that in mind. Businesses, families, organizations.
What's the deadline to take out an ad?
March 15th.
March 15th.
Get everything in. And it should be mailed right here to 500 Glenwood's Way, to the attention of the Tri-City.
When do you anticipate the book actually being?
They're hoping to have it ready before our ecumenical service, which is May 6th. So we're hoping, and again, it depends upon finishing, putting all the writings together. Then you got to put all the pictures in. We have some incredible photographs. That's another thing. If anybody has old photographs, stuff that you come across, get those sent immediately. Make arrangements with myself or any one of the Tricentennial Committee members or Nicholson Design to get them over to her studio to, have her scan them. We have some amazing photos. I think you're going to be blown away when you see this book. It's fabulous.
That's great.
So we don't have everything together yet, but it's coming along. But that's the deadline. We had moved it from January to March, so that's really important for anybody that wants to get that out.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. Does anybody else have anything under public announcements? John?
I have two announcements. One is regarding the South Shore Vocational Technical High School. On March 1st, 2012 at 6:30 at the Brass Lantern Restaurant, they, meaning the South Shore Voc Tech School, will be soliciting nominations, or they're looking for representatives, I would imagine, from each of the schools to, each of the districts to serve on the collective bargaining committee or as a representative for the town of Abington. So I don't know if anyone from the board's perspective is interested. I could submit your name on behalf of the town to Dr. Hickey, who is the superintendent director for South Shore Voc Tech.
Thank you, John. Anything else?
Yes. The other issue is Saturday night, the Cardinal Spellman Lodge in Whitman on Route 18 celebrated their first annual award, and they named Joe Colantoni as the first recipient of this award as a veteran agent for the town of Abington. He is obviously very much respected by his peers and by the Vietnam veterans community at large. And they had 18 tables, and the place was sold out. They had a great DJ, and of course Joe was himself, I would imagine, right? And then Dory presented the proclamation on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, and I gave a little proclamation. It was a fun one for Joe. And Gracie is his lovely fiance of, what, 10 years, 15 years? Yeah. Was on hand along with Joe's family. I don't know if you know this, but Joe lost a son in Germany, actually. I think it was Michael.
Yes.
Yeah, some years ago. And Michael enlisted with the help of Joe. Joe had a sign for him because he was under a certain age. And Michael was tragically killed in Germany while serving his country. And we had a moment of silence for Michael, who I'm sure would have been extremely proud of his dad and his accomplishments for veterans in general, but certainly his tenure here in the town of Abington as the veteran. I think he's going on his 16th year. He's the longest serving department head. I don't know if that's good or bad, but be that as it may, he has had some very distinctive accomplishments, and I just would like to make the residents of Abington fully aware of his accomplishments and the fact that the Cardinal Spellman Lodge and Whitman took time out to put together this celebration and recognition, and giving it to Joe, I think, was a very good choice because the place was packed. There was a lot of brass there from both ends. So from the Coast Guard all the way up to the Army, and from every branch of service. So it was a very well received and very distinctive honor for Joe. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you, Dory, for giving that proclamation on our behalf. Does anybody else have anything under public announcements? No? Okay. First on the agenda at 6:30, we have the continuation of hearing for an amendment to the underground storage license at 115 Brockton Avenue, Sitco. Back on February 6th, we began this hearing to allow Sitco to add a 3,000-gallon storage tank for diesel fuel. And the board voted to continue the hearing because an abutter had some concerns regarding noise and hours of operation that the principal's representative was not able to answer. Is the principal's here this evening?
yeah.
Okay, would the petitioner or his representative take the podium and introduce yourself, please?
Good evening. For the record, Anthony Kuba with AUB Engineering, representing Mr. Durrani. A&D owns the property at 650 Brockton, or 18. Is it 650?
It is 115.
115, sorry. I believe that the last time that I was here, we talked about the tanks, and there was some concerns raised by an abutter, and I believe that since that time, the principal has met with the abutter and with the town administrator. I believe that they've come to an agreement, and I believe that those majority of those concerns have been addressed.
Okay. I'm going to open it to the floor. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Guba, sorry.
Well,
Please, podium, name. Sorry.
Hi, Stan Kogut, 27 Rockland Street, Abington. As far as the tanks are concerned, I got a question. Where is the tank going in relationship to Rockland Street?
I have a board if you, this is the station here. This is Rockland Street, Brockton Street. The tank is being located right here. The existing tanks are here, and the tank is as close as we can get it without disturbing the existing tanks.
And where is the diesel going to be pumped from?
This position right here.
All right, so both, now the tank is going to be the closest to my house, and the pump is going to be the closest to my house.
Your house is up here.
No, my house is not here. My house is right across the street, right here, yeah. Because this here is, there's two driveways, and you come out of this driveway, and my house is right there. So it's not way up here.
Okay, it was my understanding it was across. from
No,
the
no, it's
conservation.
not, it's not. It's not, because I look out my front door, and you can see the car wash. That's how close we are.
Okay.
Okay? This is the whole problem. And the lights and everything else. So, now, with the tank is gonna be, because this is an island in the front here that's on the, where Brockton Ave and, 27, Rockland Street goes.
Yes.
Right, and this here is, because there's the firehouse right here.
Yes.
Okay? And these two tanks are here now, because this truck generally, the delivery truck comes up, swings in this driveway, pulls in here, fills up and swings out to go back down to Brockton.
Okay.
All right? Now, he's not gonna be, is he gonna have to come in here all the time?
No, the route that he uses now, he'll be able to use the same route in order to fill this
All right,
in.
in this construction, how much, is there gonna be a cop on detail there all the time for, during this construction for traffic problems?
Well,
Because in the morning, it's backed up anyways because of the stop sign. And in the afternoon, and I can't even get out of my driveway sometimes. I think there should be mandatory, a cop on detail for the construction.
the construction activity will be limited to
But-
within the property. There won't be any work.
But people are gonna be trying to pull in and out of there with construction equipment. There's two driveways. And the people are pulling off the street, people are, you know, they're just gonna pull in anywhere, stop until they get in. I think there should be some, town police officer doing detail there, paid for, a paid detail during the construction.
John.
Mr. Chairman, usually the chief of police would make that determination from a public safety perspective. He would, we would ask him to make that determination as to
I
whether or not a
certainly would
police
like that
officer.
looked into.
We
Because
can do
of,
that.
because of the
Necessary.
traffic right now, it's bad in the morning and at night.
Okay. Stanley, last time you were here, you had questions regarding noise and hours of operation.
Now,
Have those questions been addressed?
Yeah, well, let me get one thing here. Excuse me. I tried to address this back in 2006, okay? And I'll read one paragraph here, so before, this will, prior to me saying anything more. The hours of operation in the minutes of the meeting are Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., where there is no specified mention of any hours of operation on Sunday, which surprises me. I conclude that the Sunday hours are the same as Monday through Saturday.
Which meeting was that?
This goes back to June 28th from the zoning board.
June 28th, what year?
Yeah, 2006.
2006.
Could we see a copy of that, please?
Sure. You can see it. I mean, that's the only copy I have.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'll
I
take
just
it.
want to see it.
So I did bring this
2008?
up before.
Six.
Okay, and this was in
And
response to a
he
complaint.
and the gas station over there says, I got a license that says I can open at 6, but he don't care about this. He opens up anytime he pleases from 5 o'clock on. Even this morning, my wife is a nurse. 5:15, she leaves for work this morning. They were open. 5:30, they had all their lights on. They had delivery trucks there. This happens even on a Sunday.
According to that letter, it was the determination of the building inspector that because Sunday wasn't mentioned, that you would have the same hours on Sunday
Right.
as the rest of the week. What was the outcome of the discussion you guys had prior to this meeting?
Okay, nothing. There was supposed to be some electrician looked into the lighting situation because I talked about the lighting coming into my stepdaughter's bedroom on one side of the building. And I commented that behind this gas station, there is auto sound. They have the same type of building lighting set up, but they don't have a long length. They have different lights coming down, flowing down, and the intensity is 50% less, at least 50% less than what he has. Lowe's down the street, that's a major operation down there. You can go down there anytime at night, they're lighting the whole parking lot with less
I think the
voltage or lighting or whatever than he does for one side. What, for a car wash?
Okay. Would the principals like to answer any of the abutters' concerns?
Yeah.
Just introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Zahid Durrani, and we did cut down this lights, 40% of that, and I have a letter from an electrician,
Okay.
and we worked on it, the car wash 8 to 8.
When did you cut down the lights?
It was
Just recently, or was that?
recently,
Okay.
but we never changed the fixture. They were always, they are not direct, they are hanging down.
All right. Now, what about the hours of operation for the
Car
Car
wash
wash.
8 to 8.
8 to 8? Okay. And that's from, that's fine, all right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I was also involved in this meeting because the board had requested that I work with these two individuals, and we agreed that 8 to 8 would be the hours for the car wash and the vacuum cleaner, because that makes a lot of noise. I also spoke with the individual electrician that your owner is supposed to have hired to put in new lighting that would direct it down rather than out, and reduce the lighting on the side facing Rockland Street. And that was what we had agreed to. Yes. To try to alleviate the concerns of the abutter. There is a variance to the special permit, and I think that what we can do as a board is refer the owner of the building and the property abutter to work out whatever licensing issues there may be in relationship to the hours of operation. However, as it relates directly with the storage of the underground tanks, I believe that this board can determine the location of the fuel disposal unit
Dispenser.
furthest away from the house. And while we may have some difficulty with where this particular tank can be located from an engineering perspective, I think that we could reasonably restrict the car wash hours, the vacuum cleaning hours, as to when their vacuum cleaner can be turned on and utilized, and that we can negotiate some sort of an outcome with those individuals that have powers over the special permit variance, which would be
What was
zoning board.
what's the variance with the special permit?
The hours of operation, I
Okay.
can imagine. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, does the operation itself, is it subject to a variance or a special permit before the zoning board of appeals or planning board?
I don't know.
No, actually, we checked into that, there was no restrictions.
Yes.
It was a negative determination by zoning, and there wasn't any conservation issues or planning
So
issues.
the only permit.
It was a pre-existing gas station. It was under Fernandez, I think it was.
John Fernandez.
Yeah, who owned it prior to. Actually, it's been somewhat improved in relationship to the appearance from what I'm told. I haven't, been here that long to know exactly what has transpired.
Yes, sir. Yes, Lauren, sorry.
It seems like these issues are important issues, that to the extent that the parties are able to negotiate something and make it easier for you to make a decision about whether you're comfortable authorizing the permit, the underground storage permit. Under the statute, the board is allowed to put conditions on the permit, and the question is really how far those conditions can go. I think it would be preferable to have some sort of agreement in place so that when you approved the permit, or if and when you approved the permit, you understood what the property owner was agreeing to, rather than try to impose those conditions on the permit just kind of, ad hoc or at your sole discretion. That way, there's less of a chance of an appeal from either side.
Thank you.
So what would you recommend, Lauren, that they go back and sit down and negotiate something, come back to us with something in writing saying this is what we've...
Well, I think we can put something in writing. We've negotiated what I think we've both agreed to at this point.
Are we at that point, do you think?
Mr. Chairman,
Stanley.
nothing has been mentioned yet. Even she did not address the fact that his operating hours is 6 a.m. and he pays no attention to this. He's opening at 5:15 in the morning, turning on all his lights at 5:15 to 5:30. And then he made comment just less than 10 minutes ago that they reduced the lighting on that side of the street. Now, we live there, and that lighting has not been reduced.
The letter said February 23rd, they reduced it, but, the hours, if you put a condition on a license, it's only as good as the enforcement, okay? His hours are 6 to 11 for the gas station.
Yeah, John used to open 5 to 11, 5 to 10. So we are opening 5 to 10:30. That's
5 to 10:30?
Yeah, right now it's 5:30 to 10:30.
I thought the license said
6 to
The
11.
zoning-
I've got the copy, it's 6
Yeah.
to 11.
6 to
6
11.
6 to 11, yeah.
Not 5.
Okay, 6 to 11.
Okay, so you're willing to,
And the car wash goes off.
okay, car wash is 8 to 8.
I know, but my stepdaughter came home Saturday night, was it, or the other night? We were having dinner Saturday night. We were commenting upon this. She came home, and she was gonna come here tonight, but she had to go to a meeting. She was coming home like 2:30 in the morning, and somebody was coming out of the car wash.
Okay, now is that car wash automated?
Yes,
So if someone swipes the card at the dispenser,
No, we shut down.
you can shut that, and you can also
Yeah,
can you shut down the vacuum
2:30,
cleaners?
what day? I can look at it in my,
It's probably recorded.
yeah.
Why is
Just hold on, Stanley.
I'm sorry.
Can you shut down those vacuums so they're not inoperable after?
We do, since we talked to it, we've been doing it, and we posted this sign too.
Okay.
So it's already done.
Well, it says 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., thanks. I wish they didn't work. They don't work after 8 p.m.
No,
right?
we shut it down.
You shut it down, okay.
We shut it down too, but
that you just let
I don't
people
want
know.
them to come down, put the money in,
And say, okay.
or
gotcha.
then rip it.
Yeah, I know, all right,
That's why I put it in.
okay. Now, we talked about noise. We talked about lighting. Are you satisfied? If
it goes on, I don't wanna call the cops. They got a lot more important things to do. But for me, by the time I call the police department to come down there, because that car wash has gone off, or somebody's over vacuuming, they're probably gone if a cruise, because you know how many cruises work during the night. That's the least call, okay? But it just appears, and I wish the woman behind me, and if it means that, I will go to the other neighbors and ask them to come up here and back me up on what I'm saying.
If he doesn't conform to the conditions of this license, we can always, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, bring him back for a show cause hearing, and we can and we can take action.
So if
Okay.
the lights go down and the car wash is not working, we can move forward.
Okay. With that said, are you in agreement to limit the hours of the car wash based on what you've heard here today?
From 8 AM to 8 PM.
Yes.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
And the vacuum.
We've
And the
already
vacuum.
agreed to that.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
And with that, you've reduced the lighting.
We did that already.
Okay, well, he has documentation that it was reduced as of February 23rd.
We never installed any extra than previously. We just changed the bulb since I owned it.
I wish I had a meter, because I will swear that that lighting is exactly the same, and we live there, I know it better than anybody. I know it better than him, because we live it, we put up with it constantly. And I wish, prove it to me.
Yeah.
It had not been done.
I know, but it's, right now,
Okay.
we're still here for,
I hear what you're saying.
we're here for a storage tank. The storage tank is not the lighting, okay?
And I,
Now, we're trying to accommodate you.
Right.
We want all businesses in town to be in compliance to the conditions of their respective licenses. Now, we have a letter from an electrician that says he reduced the lighting in the back of the building by 40%. It was just done Friday, okay? Now, we'll just give him the benefit of the doubt on this. Tank location.
I don't want it any closer to my house than,
Well, I don't think, Mr. Chairman,
I
and
don't
I'll-
think it's
Yeah.
possible, but
yeah, in all due respect, I think the issue becomes one of engineering and one of public safety.
Exactly, and there's
And I
piping
think
underneath.
it
I'm
isn't-
I'm not suggesting we're gonna change the
No, and I
location. I'm
don't
just,
think it's up to the board to make a determination as to where the tank could go. I think from my mind, it's squarely and solely an issue between an engineering and a public safety standpoint. If the engineering has certified to the fire chief that the tank goes wherever it goes, and the fire chief is satisfied, in my mind, I think that's where it's gotta go.
Sure,
quite-
I agree.
Quite candidly.
what about asking the police chief about a detailer?
That's no problem.
I think that,
Well, that's in his hands
He
anyway.
would do that
If
anyway.
he determines that there's a public safety issue,
I'm sorry?
then, that's in his hands anyways. If he determines there's a public safety issue, then he'll,
who's gonna approach him on that?
We will.
town will.
We will.
If I may, are you going to remain open during the installation of the tank?
No, just a convenience store will be open. The
No,
gas
so
station
you
will
won't be
be,
selling fuel?
no fuel selling.
And
And how long do you anticipate that to take?
It's 25 to 30 days.
Thank you.
And the dispenser will be same location, nothing added.
Okay. If nobody else has anything, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the hearing is closed. So, does anyone have any further motion, anything they'd like to add to the discussion?
No, Mr. Chairman, based on the testimony that was before us from the owner as to what his agreements are and looking over the recommendation of the fire chief, I would move that the application be approved, but I just want the applicant to understand one thing, is when we say that there are conditions, or when we say that the approval is done, based on whatever it is, you have to adhere to that. If you fail to adhere to that, there's nothing precluding us from having a notice to show cause to have the license revoked. Now, I understand the license runs with the land, but, if we find in our determination that there are problems there, so I don't want you to think by going out of here this evening, that absolves you of dealing with the issue. So with that, I'll make a motion we approve.
And I'll second the motion, but again, after listening to the gentleman about who lived there and about her, and I think if you gentlemen lived in his house and you heard a vacuum cleaner going off at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and car washes going off during the night, I think you'd agree that it was a legitimate gripe. It does sound like we've reached some kind of a consensus here that we're going to attempt to work together, and that's all we as a board would like to see happen. And it doesn't seem to be terribly unreasonable, 8 to 8 with the car wash and, you know, with the other, with the gas and stuff like that, 6 to 11. So I would hope that we could move forward for this and you know, everybody be a little happier anyways.
Just a quick, Kevin, are those two conditions of the license? Is that something we can do?
What does the license say now? I haven't seen it. For the remainder of the tanks.
I believe it's just the addition of a 3,000-gallon tank for the storage of diesel fuel.
I guess the issue in my mind is that they're two separate issues on the property itself. I guess in terms of his representation, testimony at the hearing indicating that he would comply, you know, we're taking him at face value and looking at it on the basis of the hours of operation that the zoning board had imposed. If he goes askew of that, then I guess the question becomes is whether he's violated the provisions set down by the zoning board.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Lauren?
I'm going to recommend, if you want to go forward with the conditions, I know that they're very important to the whole discussion. Approve the license, add the conditions, and then if in fact they were ultra-virus, if they were beyond the authority of the board, well, they wouldn't be valid. But it still gives a message to the licensee about the board's thinking and the importance of these issues. And if the conditions prove to be ultimately more than was required, then you know you can look at other ways of regulating that through passage of a bylaw, a zoning bylaw, or if there is a zoning application out there somewhere, or some sort of permit out there somewhere, it can be dealt with like that. But obviously, the agreement between the parties is what's the important part of this discussion, so
Yeah.
I think we can go forward with the conditions on and
Yeah, I'd like to
Each-
see the
each-
conditions.
position of the board.
Okay, but
Mr. Chairman?
either way, John,
Just as a note, there is a noise ordinance enforced through the Board of Health that requires that normal hours of operation for businesses are from, you know, from noise perspective, is from 7 in the morning, nothing earlier than that.
That's another option in terms of enforcement.
either way, the method of enforcement is the same,
Right.
you know. Would you care to amend your motion?
True, yep.
Okay,
To include the
Yes,
conditions.
include the
that's fine.
conditions.
8 to 8 for the car wash and the vacuum,
Mhm.
and the reduced lighting on Rockland Street.
No second.
okay.
And the operating hours, correct?
The operator's 6 to 11,
In the operating.
which
what-
they
what-
are anyway.
What about the, yeah, that's for the gas station, but what about the operating hours for the
8 to 8.
car wash, 8 to 8? Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda,
Chris, you have the information,
sorry, hold
who
on.
has that? Those
Oh,
two?
yeah, that's
Yeah, that's it. That's,
in the.
I'd give them the other ones.
That's-
That's
yes,
yours,
yeah. And that,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a note
Stanley,
too
can you
that
hand that to
the
those
Board of
guys?
Health is currently working on their noise regulations and updating them. So you may want to contact the Board of Health. They might seek your input because they are working on the new noise regulations.
Density level?
Yep, they have a dB meter and everything, and they have very strict noise regs.
okay. Thank you, Stanley. All right.
Okay, thank you.
How many did you send out? How many did you send out?
Depends what the issue is,
Yeah,
okay?
I always come up and see you guys on Tuesday.
exactly right.
Now, right?
That's
Monday,
right.
Monday.
No, Tuesday.
You can meet on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. Okay, you know what, why don't you take that? Take that. Yeah, take that, yep. I'm sure he's got it. All right,
Okay, thank you.
next on the agenda, we have a
Would you-
presentation from the Bylaw Review Committee. And here to speak with us is Bylaw Review Committee Chairman Kathy Creighton. John, did you want to say something? No.
All right.
Kathy?
Hi, everybody. We're here tonight to talk about our proposed recommendations from the Bylaw Committee. In accordance with the Abington Town Charter, the Bylaw Committee has to meet every 5 years. The Board of Selectmen appointed us in the fall of 2010 to review specifically the general bylaws of the town of Abington. The committee members appointed were myself, Ann Welch and Jean Kelly. They're in the audience tonight, so if you have any questions, we hopefully can answer them. Since we started, we've had over 20 meetings of our board. We've requested input from all town boards and officials that we could find email addresses for, and we have spoken with many of them at our meetings. They've come with their recommendations and thoughts about changes, and we've tried to incorporate the majority of what we heard into our proposed recommendations. The proposed changes range from adding an enforcement process for the bylaws, changing fire alarm connections to a radio frequency master box, allowing the town to hold town meeting in other locations when appropriate, changes to the library office hours and building closures, and the town manager's authority to close buildings, issuance of hawker and peddler licenses, some changes to the Class 2 requirements that are already, the licenses that already appear. We've added a code of ethics. We have also added some language about taping of meetings of governmental bodies. We've changed the timing of notification of town meeting and distribution of the warrant. We have also made some changes to the timeline for Finance Committee recommendations. We really appreciate the Board of Selectmen appointing town council to help us craft the warrant articles. Lauren Goldberg has been a phenomenal help and has sped the process for us. We really appreciate it. And we have asked Lauren to help us help you guys walk through tonight the proposed warrant articles. Some of them have some legalities associated with them, and it made more sense for Lauren to do the lead on that. But we're here, and hopefully we can ask some questions. We could answer your questions,
Sure.
actually. Thank you. Lauren?
Thank you, Kathy. Go ahead, Lauren.
Okay. Thank you all for having me tonight. I wanted to just go through the different articles, and I'll be as quick or as slow as you want me to be. So they're labeled A through, where are we at now? They've grown a little bit. A through N. So I'll just go through them quickly. The first one is relative to enforcement of the town bylaws through the non-criminal disposition process. You currently have non-criminal disposition in your bylaws, but it's not generally applicable. It's applicable to particular bylaws. This will make it applicable to all bylaws and also to any regulations that have been adopted by boards or committees of the town or officers of the town. The proposal is for there to be a set, in the bylaw itself, as revised, there's a set of fines that start with a warning. And they would be applicable in the event that there's no specific bylaw provision already that addresses a specific violation. So if it says a fine of not more than $300 may be assessed, that's not a specific penalty. So then the new bylaw provision relative to fines would come into play. But if the bylaw says any violation of this bylaw will be $50, then the $50 amount will still control. But what this does is it also sets up a local appeal process that's kind of within what's allowed by the state, so that you could appeal your violation. Let's say it was, let's just say a noise violation. So there's a noise violation, you get a ticket under the non-criminal process. First you get a warning, you don't do anything, you do it again. A ticket's given out by the police department for whatever the amount is, $50, you still don't do anything, gets to 100, you decide I'm going to appeal, I don't think I'm violating. You could appeal to the town manager and explain, oh, I didn't realize it was 9 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock, or whatever it is. And if the town manager believes that it's more important to essentially to resolve the issue than to seek the payment of the fine, then the town manager could resolve that. If the town manager doesn't resolve it to the individual's pleasure, then it could still be appealed to the district court for resolution that way. So it doesn't take away any rights under state law. It just gives another opportunity essentially to resolve something locally. And this really reflected the bylaw review committee's perspective that getting these things solved is more important than necessarily collecting the money. The goal is to move forward to get these bylaw violations addressed. So that's the first one. Do you have any questions, or? Okay. The second one has to do with fire alarm connections, and this was requested by the fire chief. The current system that's used to automatically notify the fire department of a fire is old, and it's done through wires, and there is a much better process out there, a wireless process that's actually used in all of the newer fireboxes in town, but there are older fireboxes out there. There's about 40 of them. Although it will cost a little bit of money to switch over to this brand-new process, the public safety benefits are much more significant. They notify the fire department of where the violation is coming from and of the type of, where the notification is coming from. So if it's at the high school, let's say, it would tell you where in the high school that fire alarm is going off, and it would also say the type of notification. So the proposal essentially inserts a definition of master box, because these are master box notifications, and it says it's a radio frequency connection notification, except that until January 1, 2015, it also includes a telegraph notification. So it's essentially notice that as of January 1, 2015, there'll be a switch over to the radio frequency. And the fire chief made quite a compelling case to the committee about why this was a good idea. And again, where all of the new boxes are like that, there's only about 40 boxes in town, some of which are the towns, some of which are private. And there's a few locations where there are some private entities that have more than one box, and so there'll have to be some, contemplation by that entity as to how best to make this changeover in a way that's economically feasible. But the fire chief believes that even though this might cost some money for both the town and some private individuals, that over time it will save money and it'll be better. Everyone will be safer because of it. And I believe there was one example that everyone knew, in an intersection with a new master firebox. Does anybody remember where? I don't know. There's one that it's at a dangerous intersection, and that's the kind of firebox there is, and everyone agrees that that's a great one. So that was Article B. Article C is for the location of town meetings, and this was brought forward as a result of a request from the town moderator in the event that there was some set of circumstances that made meeting in the town difficult. For example, that there was not enough room because of a high voter turnout, or there was an emergency at a town, at the buildings that are usually used for town meeting, or there was a handicap accessibility problem, that the town meeting could be held in an adjacent town. This is something that's specifically authorized by statute if you have a bylaw or a vote. So the bylaw proposal is that the Board of Selectmen could vote that it's necessary or appropriate to hold the annual or special meeting outside the geographic boundaries of the town. And then there's a few reasons, so that the point to give kind of the board an idea about what the intention is, and that's if there was an emergency or expected voter turnout. And one of the examples is, let's just take the casino thing, not that I'm saying that the town would deal with that, but there'd be expected high voter turnout for a meeting like that, and it may mean that it would be very difficult to hold that in the town because you wouldn't be able to have enough people present in one location. So you could use the regional high school, for example.
Just a question on that. So when you print the warrant, do you have to put in there that you're actually having it at a different location? Or
Yes, you do. It would have to be decided by the...
So it would have to be that far in advance that you were thinking?
Yes. Okay. The only condition that we put in here, or that the committee recommended, is that the board determine by separate vote that it's necessary or appropriate. Obviously, the preference is to hold town meeting in the town, but that if the circumstances were such that it was that important, the board would take a separate vote in addition to signing the warrant. Okay. And they would take the vote it's necessary or appropriate for reason X or for reason Y. It's not something that, this is the board's decision, so it's not like it's something that could be challenged, but it's intended to require the board to address it as though it's a serious matter, which it is. So that's Article C. Article D had to do with the hours for the library and buildings and the town manager's authority. And this was requested by, partly by the town manager and partly by the library trustees. Essentially, it amends the existing bylaw to clarify that the hours that the library is going to be open is going to be a decision made by the Board of Library Trustees, but also kind of clarifies the current bylaw in that the Board of Library Trustees, Fire and Police Chiefs, and School Department have to inform the town manager of the hours that their buildings will be open. It's important, and when employees will be present, it's important the town manager knows to be able to answer those types of questions from the public. Also, the bylaw provides that the hours of town hall are set by the Board of Selectmen, and now it adds in consultation with the town manager. The town manager is involved in the collective bargaining process and is, knowledgeable about what hours of work those collective bargaining agreements provide. And so, in consultation with the town manager, the board would set those hours. And finally, that the Board of Selectmen can designate the town manager or another person to close town offices or departments in the case of emergencies. That's essentially that. It's a lot of words for not a huge amount of changes. Article E has to do with the authority of the Board of Library Trustees, and in a prior version that we submitted to you, there's a typo. It's not the bylaws that's being amended in that case, it's actually the charter, and this was requested by the Board of Library Trustees. All that's been added is language that's underlined. It would say, the Board of Library Trustees shall have all the powers and duties which are given to library trustees. It used to say, under the Constitution and the laws of the Commonwealth, and now the language would be under General Laws, Chapter 78, which is applicable to the Board of Library Trustees, and any other relevant provision of the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth. So it's more of an acknowledgement that Chapter 78 and its authority and duties and responsibilities are imposed on the Board of Library Trustees. Charter amendment has to be approved by a 2/3 vote and then appear on the ballot, or it could be proposed by special legislation. So either one, we can, the board, and when it's thinking about how to present these, if it chooses to, can think about exactly how that article would be presented. Article G has to do with issuance of hawkers and peddlers licenses. Oh yeah, Article F. Sorry about that. Article F would amend the town bylaws concerning the permission needed for dumping of landfill material. Essentially, this isn't taking material out, but it's bringing material in, and it just says that instead of saying without a permit issued by the Board of Selectmen, it says unless and until such action shall have been approved by the Board of Selectmen. The board isn't really issuing permits, it's just approving. So it's just more specific or more fine-tuned in terms of the board's action. Article G is about the issuance of hawkers and peddlers licenses, and essentially all it does is it allows the board to designate its authority to grant these licenses, which I believe is more consistent with current practice in any event. So the board could retain that authority for itself, or it could designate the town manager or someone else to be making decisions about hawker and peddler licenses. Article H is criminal history background checks, and Article H was requested by the town administrator and manager, assistant town manager. It essentially inserts a brand new bylaw requirement that applicants be subject to a criminal history background check, and imposes various procedural steps that must be taken consistent with state law. That if the licensing authority or its designee is going to potentially act negatively based on a criminal history background check, notice has to be given to the individual with an opportunity for them to correct the information if the information is wrong, or essentially advocate for themselves why they still should be eligible even though the criminal history background check suggests otherwise. So that is that. And just so that you know, under the state law, I forget what they're called now, the Criminal History Systems Board, but they have a brand new name like Criminal Justice Information System, I think that's it, board. They have already approved a general grant of authority for criminal history background checks to be made for Class 2 license applicants. So this doesn't do anything different, except it kind of brings it forward that this is going to be part of the process to put people on notice.
Is that common, do you know, in many towns, criminal history background check?
Yes.
It is, okay. Thanks.
The next bylaw amendment is the timing of notice to be provided to abutters, and it's changing from 10 days to 7 days. 7 days is what the statute requires, so now those are consistent. Article J is a code of ethics that was requested by the town manager, and it essentially does a bit of restating of the general laws that people are subject to, they're required to comply with the conflict of interest law, that they have to demonstrate ethical standards and all consistent with General Law, Chapter 268A, that they can't use their positions for special, personal purposes, and also that they can't represent anyone other than themselves in matters in which the town has a direct and substantial interest. Again, this is what General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 17 says, except that it adds another element, which is that prior to undertaking such representation, assuming that they meet the requirements of the statute under Section 17, they also have to file with the town clerk written notice of the representation. It only needs to be filed one time, so it's not, if they're going to go to 7 different boards, they don't have to file 7 different notices. It's just, I'm representing client X in matters before the town. That's going to be good enough. And then the notice is maintained in a separate file or a notebook by the clerk, and it's a public record subject to mandatory disclosure upon request. And this section did get revised somewhat after the input at the public hearing in January from both the town moderator and a member of a committee. So, there was concern, well, does this mean I have to file, 17 times if I go to 17 boards, or we come in 17 days? And the answer is no, you just file once before you appear, and that's good enough.
Lauren, if I could. So, just so I understand, this is more restrictive than the currently under 268A?
It is slightly more restrictive. This requirement, the last part that I spoke about, the filing of the notice, is more restrictive.
Okay, and what's the penalty if somebody does not file? Is there any penalty provision?
Well, that's a good question, Ken. This, like everything else, would be subject to that non-criminal disposition. So in theory, a non-criminal disposition ticket could be given as a result. But essentially, one of the things that we had a discussion about at the public hearing was that this is aspirational in nature. It's meant to make a statement about the way the town operates. The town employees, whether elected, appointed, part-time, full-time, are subject to ethical standards. And if a person's going to appear on behalf of another entity in a matter in which the town has a direct and substantial interest, they're going to disclose it ahead of time because that's a good public service. It's good public information. And so, it's not meant to be punitive. It's meant to require more disclosure.
But under 268A, wouldn't an individual still have to disclose to the town clerk if they were if they had a potential conflict? They're still required to disclose that to the clerk, is that correct?
Mr. Manager, Mr. Moderator.
Donovan.
No, I know, I meant to go back to the chair. Mr. Chairman, if I can respond.
Please.
In fact, they would have to file disclosure about action that they would take in their official capacity. So there wouldn't be any disclosure that they would need to file about action that they would take in their private capacity. Because when you file a disclosure, it's that I might act or fail to act in my professional, in my official capacity, let's say as a member of the Board of Selectmen, because I live next door to so-and-so, or I live across the street from so-and-so. And even though I don't have a financial interest in this matter, it may look as though I do. And so I have an interest, and I want to let everyone know that I'm going to make a decision based on applicable facts and laws, et cetera. So that's in your official capacity. So there's nothing that you have to file in your private or personal capacity. When you come before a board, if let's say the Board of Selectmen were special municipal employees, and a member of the board was going to represent someone in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is just hypothetical. When you got up there, people might know who you are if they know you, but they might not if they don't. And so what this would do is it would say, if anybody's curious about, who in the town is representing other people before town boards, they can go and they don't have to go to every meeting. They don't have to go to the zoning board and the planning board and the conservation commission meetings. They can just go and they can look in the town clerk's office. And if, let's say, again, hypothetically, the selectmen were specials and one selectman was, actively representing people here, there, and everywhere, they could just look and they could say, oh, yeah, Selectman so-and-so is really busy with his private work right now. And, it wouldn't be something that anyone could take action on. There's no action to be taken. It's just for information. So, again, whether you think it's a good idea, that's a policy decision to be made, but it was reflecting this idea that there would be a value in having this information be available to the public.
Anything else for Lauren? Thank you.
Okay, well, we have a few more. Should I keep going?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. But I'll go if you want. Okay. K is about taping of public bodies, and there was a discussion about how it would be useful for more meetings in town to be taped for broadcast on cable television, but that as a practical matter and as a matter of technology, that may not be able to be something that can be mandated at this point. You know, if every room could be wired and it could all be done, that might be terrific, but that's not where we are today. So the idea was to, again, kind of aspirationally, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to adopt a policy concerning televising of meetings of multiple member bodies, and it would recognize that if it was technologically and practically feasible, it could require all meetings to be televised live or recorded for the purpose of later broadcast. But whether or not the meeting, you know, we got a little concerned that whether or not the meeting was broadcast wouldn't affect the validity of the meeting. So even if the board adopted a policy saying all meetings should be televised, and then there was a meeting that wasn't televised, the meeting itself would still be valid. But there could be other repercussions. Especially, you know, if the Board of Selectmen were the appointing authority for the committee and the committee chose to ignore the policy that was essentially a decision under this bylaw, then not only would there be a potential bylaw violation, but the Board of Selectmen as appointing authority could also take disciplinary action as it deemed appropriate. Okay. L has to do with distribution of the warrant, and it has, it is being suggested as a special act. And, you know, we can go back and do that as well with Article E. But this special act would amend the charter to change the process for making the warrant available prior to town meeting by revising Section 2-8, and it would take out, as I said, the requirement that it be mailed, and it would say notice of any annual or special town meeting shall be provided in the manner prescribed by the general laws and bylaws. And then it would amend the bylaws as well, and it would essentially add in, it would take out the current 152.2, and it would add in a new requirement that the warrant be posted at post offices and 2 or more other public places in the town, that following the execution of the warrant be posted to the town's website, copies made available at town offices and the public library, and to the extent feasible, at 2 additional publicly accessible locations in the town. It would also require that a postcard notice be mailed to all residences of 1 or more voters in the town at least 1 week prior, not later than 1 week prior to the date of the meeting. That had the date, the time, and the place of the meeting, and there's kind of sample language in there. The warrant and the Finance Committee recommendations could be viewed at the town's clerk's office at whatever address, on the town's website, contact the town clerk with whatever number to request a paper copy of the warrant. And then, and this is important to ensure that if there was if the postcard didn't get noticed, or if it wasn't somehow posted on the website or something, that in and of itself wouldn't affect the validity of the meeting. So it says, while it's the intent of this bylaw that every effort be made to file, post, and comply with the mailing and copying requirements, failure to do so shall not invalidate the action of the meeting. And this really is, in the event, let's say the website went down, you don't want to have to go get special legislation to correct your meeting. And then the last thing it does is it says that this bylaw amendment wouldn't take effect until the special legislation that's part of this also took effect. So you're not going to all of a sudden have this strange requirement, you do the postcard and all that while you still have to mail. It would only take effect once that requirement was approved. Article M is also an amendment to the town charter and general bylaws. The first part would seek the special legislation, and the goal of this is to make the charter and the bylaws kind of have one timeline for the Finance Committee's recommendations. So it would say that they have to file with the clerk at least 10 days prior to the town meeting a report containing its recommendation. And then we say it also is going to be made available as provided in the bylaws and at town meeting. And then it also makes the bylaw provision consistent with the mailing requirement, with the notice requirement, meaning that the bylaw is going to say that it has to be posted on the town's website and, on the town's website, copies available at the offices and public library and at 2 additional publicly accessible locations in the town. And that was requested by the moderator. And then the final article is with respect to the bylaw that places a cap on Class 2 licenses in the town. And there was recently a court case that said that placing a cap on Class 2 licenses is inconsistent with law. And so we had actually sent out a client memorandum saying that if you have such a cap, it really should be removed, and this article removes the cap.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, I have a question. Since these bylaw reviews are all different flavors, are these going to go on the warrant as one article, or are they going to be
I guess that'll
individual?
be the committee's determination.
Separate articles, they'll each go separately, and they'll have a vote separately.
Okay, because,
And that way they won't be dependent on each other.
yeah. Okay. The charter one would have to be separate anyway. All right, that's the only question I had.
Are you folks going to make recommendations on these, or as to?
I think we're in agreement with them.
No, but I mean, are you going to recommend that there be, I know at one of your meetings you said you weren't really going to take position, maybe not take a position on
I
whether or
think
not.
we're hoping that, like, for example, the fire chief will speak on his own article, because I think he's the best spokesperson for that.
Okay.
But we will probably speak if we have.
Okay.
Have all of these had public hearings, advertised public hearings?
I guess, I don't think I'd call them advertised, they were in the newspaper, but we did have a public hearing about a month ago, but we only had a couple of members of the public come.
Lauren, prior to it going forward to town meeting, in case there's any question, should the bylaw committee itself have a advertised public hearing on all of them to get final comment?
Mr. Chairman. There was some thought that after this meeting, there might be another opportunity to have a public hearing to get a little more feedback and kind of have an opportunity to give the public more information so that it's not a surprise at town meeting. And as we all recall from the last town meeting, there was an issue where people felt they didn't have enough notice. And actually, the way that we drafted the articles was intentional in that we put the language in that's going to be changed so that people don't say, well, where did this come from or what's this about? So, I think, obviously it's up to the bylaw review committee, but I don't think there would be any harm in having a public hearing before then.
There's no requirement for advertising, right?
There's
not.
not.
A budget, so somebody would have to pay for that.
I mean,
No,
I was going to say, not me either.
We can kick in some money. We got enough conservatives on the board, they can all kick in some money, we can put this on the.
My concern is just what Lauren articulated, is that I would hate, after all your fine work, to get to town meeting and somebody get up and say, gee, had I known. And I think that the way to abate that would be to have an advertised public hearing. And by advertisement, a simple notice on the town website to indicate that you're going to hold a public hearing on such and such a date to consider, these proposed changes to the bylaw, and then let them come and talk.
If someone could assist me in getting it posted, I have both times, both tonight's and the previous meeting, I have emailed them through the process that you're supposed to go through. So if somebody could help me get that onto cable, because obviously I can't do that.
Sure.
Yeah, just to speak to Kevin's, concern about having an advertised public hearing, we had an advertised public hearing with the Board of Selectmen on the personnel bylaw. And there were still a number of people who said, had I known, I would have, so I don't know how valid, in this community, whether or not a public hearing would do any good. Only from the standpoint that we did it. We had a public hearing at a selectmen's meeting, no one showed up, and then everyone got up at town meeting and said, had we known, So, I think it's a great idea, and I think we should probably do it. As far as a public hearing is concerned, I think the town manager's budget would hopefully have some money in it that would be able to.
Well, I don't think you need to
No, you
advertise
don't
it.
have to. I think just put it on the website.
I don't think you need to advertise in the newspaper. I think if you put it on the website.
We did that the
It
last
was.
time.
It was on the website, so.
Oh, it was on the website?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's not on cable.
Okay, all right, then fine.
But are you still going to do one more anyways, or is that your plan?
We will like us to. Sorry.
Well, I don't know, it's probably a good idea just to say one more shot. You've presented it to us, it's now open.
If I can get a
public
soft copy of this, I'll put this on as proposed changes to the existing bylaw. If you can get this cleaned up to me.
We will do that.
This is very good work, by the way. I think
Thank you very much, yeah.
excellent job, and I support every one of them, so, personally. And at some point, we will take a vote,
We'll
I would
have to take
imagine,
a vote.
to,
And just, if I might, you're still gonna have to go before the finance committee.
Well, excuse me, I was just going to answer. The Finance Committee are the ones by charter who make recommendations on
Correct.
all warrant articles, whether financial or not. So you're going to come before the Finance Committee on these articles. We'll incorporate them as individual articles in the warrant.
I believe, John, it's also been our practice for the board to say whether or not we're gonna support a particular article.
Yes.
on a
Yeah,
hearing, yeah.
when we go over
That's
the
true.
warrant.
I do, and some of you people were involved with the charter and went through it. The public access is very important to have a degree of comfort, but I agree with you, John. I think we went through the procedure the last time, and, you can bring the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I got comments too about that, and I don't know really as a board or, how much more we can do to, for people, but I think we should follow through with that. Again, I'd like to commend you guys for, a job well done. Very nice.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions, just not
Please,
to
Kenny, thanks.
sort things out here, but I'm not sure who to direct them to, if you guys. On D, the authority of selectmen to close offices, I'm just curious as to why it says, with the exception of public schools in the public library. I can see that the library has their own board, but if that was the case, then why wouldn't the sewer building and the water building and the highway barn be included in that? Do you understand what I mean? It's just kind of a weird, I don't know why that group is singled out. I can see the schools because they're kind of their own. Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead, I'm going to have.
Go ahead,
No,
Kathy.
I'm not.
I'm just, okay, Lauren, go ahead.
Listen, I kind of,
Well, the school department, they have care, custody, and control of the schools, so pretty much that's the reason for that. The library was actually one of the things that was changed, because the library felt very strongly that they needed to be able to make that decision. That's really,
Because they're open Saturdays.
they're open Saturdays.
Public buildings are not.
well, the police and fire are open 24/7.
Right, but the library, you wouldn't be necessarily here to know that they needed to close.
That's correct.
And
The
the-
librarians would know.
And the language in the general laws relative to the Board of Library Trustees is actually quite strong, and it does say that the library and the reading room are under the control of the Board of Library Trustees. As the charter was, it was deemed consistent with state law, it was fine. You don't need to change it, it is fine. But that's something that is important to them. They came and made their case to the committee, and the committee, for the reasons indicated, the hours, the weekend hours, and some of the night hours are different, and so the idea was that this
Yeah.
would give them the
They
flexibility to do
definitely
that.
have different hours in town hall.
I'm
For obvious
just
reasons.
trying to bring up some questions that might be asked at a later point.
Yeah.
I have no problem with this.
Nothing about squirrels, right?
Actually, that's coming up. No, Article H and the criminal history background check for Class 2 licenses. Being one of the new guys, Class 2 licenses or motor vehicle licenses, what other licenses do we grant, and would they fall, should there be query checks on other people that, do other licenses too? Alcohol or whatever licenses we provide. Does that make sense too?
We currently perform that on all licenses that you grant. We do
Except
that.
for Class 2 now?
No, we do Class 2 now.
Oh, so we're doing this now?
We're currently doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, we've always done it. For any license that you grant, we check.
Should
We
we change
perform
to
this
say
function.
any licenses that the town grants, instead of just singling out Class 2?
As I understand it, the reason this came forward was from the town manager, assistant town manager, the request for this. So certainly that could be. That wasn't when when it came to the bylaw review committee, they were looking at those changes that had been requested by various departments, and this was a change that had been requested. So I think the idea for Class 2, especially if the cap is taken off, is that it's important just to have everyone on the same page about what's going to happen. And so this essentially gives that notice to people, hey, guess what, this is coming your way. Yes, the process is done for other licenses as well. This is just, and I guess it could be something to think about for the future. It just wasn't something the bylaw review committee was looking at.
Right, and I think the Class 2 license has a pretty significant laundry list, so this was a way to make sure that they know up front that that's going to happen.
Yeah. The bylaws actually have a lot about Class 2 licenses in them, so.
Oh, okay. My last question, is L. It sounds to me that by just sending out a postcard instead of the warrant, the town will save some money that way too.
That was really the intent. I think it will serve the same purpose of notification to everyone.
Yeah.
The warrant will be available both online, and if you want to go see it, it'll be in a couple of public places that people can come see it. But it was a way to save us some money. The postage alone should be a lot cheaper. And actually, we may be able to time it the way we've set it up, that we can send it a little closer to the date so that people will be more aware that it's coming up and not forget about it.
Right, and not just the mailing cost, but the printing cost too, because you print the
Right.
warrants, that everybody gets sent, and then you have some at the town meeting, so it's a great cost saving too.
Well, the mail out and the printing is close to about $8,000
Combined.
combined, and we get less than 300 people.
I think these are great.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Great.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Well, since we don't have to take action on these,
Well, they're going to be on they'll
Yeah,
be on the...
not tonight, I mean.
On the annual town meeting warrant.
okay, I guess we can just move on? Okay. Next on the agenda, at 6:45, we have the transfer of an all-alcohol retail package store license at 760 Brockton Avenue, Billy's Liquors. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 27th at 6:45 PM in the Carter Hearing Room, 500 Glenowicz Way, on the application of Prabhudas Patel Sr., Package Store Incorporated, DBA Billy's Liquors, for a transfer of an all-alcohol package store license from Aryan Panariti, Dimitri's Wine and Liquor Incorporated, DBA Billy's Liquors, 760 Brockton Avenue. I will entertain a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the hearing is open. Good evening.
Good evening.
Could you please introduce yourself? Thank you.
My name is Joe Detlin. I'm an attorney from the DeMarcus Law Offices in Lynn, Massachusetts. With me is Prabhudas Patel, very good pronunciation, Mr. Chairman, and his grandson, who's also going to be the other assistant manager, primary employee. You're always going to see one of the two of them there, Robbie Patel. Some people don't like to go last, but when I've given notice to abutters, I like to see the whole room cleared out, except for the seller is here, Mr. Panariti. I work for a Greek law firm, but I'm stumbling over that name.
You're Armenian, right?
Albanian.
Albanian, sorry.
We're here for a transfer and also a pledge of the license to Rockland Trust. Rockland Trust is financing most of this deal, so they're going to have a security agreement, and we need to get the local approval for a pledge of the license, which is part of the assets of the business. Mr. Patel is paying the rest in cash from the bank accounts of he and his wife. He's got experience in the liquor industry. He was an owner of a liquor store in Shirley until 2009. Since he's been here in America since 1985, he's worked at a variety of convenience and retail type, small retail businesses. That's what his family does. So he has a lot of experience. Both he and Robbie are going to get tips trained. The nearest one and the earliest one that was near, I guess, was tomorrow in Plymouth. So they're going tomorrow, and certainly the board can make, passing that a condition of the license. They're familiar with the liquor store industry and the sale of wine and malt, safe sale of wine and malt, and certainly will be more familiar tomorrow after they get tip certified.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question for the petitioners?
Are they buying the property also, or are they?
They are not, no.
Leasing the property?
Yeah, Mr. Prabhudas, yeah. Prabhudas.
Do you have a lease that you've entered into yet?
Yep,
Do you have a copy of that lease?
yes. It was submitted with the application.
It was?
Yeah.
We have them here? Are they in here? Oh, okay.
I don't have anything.
I have no questions.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
John?
In relationship to the pledging of the license to Rockland Trust, Trust, what does that mean? The Board of Selectmen are the issuing authority for the license. The pledging of this license, does it then interfere with the board's ability to rescind that license for violation purposes?
I understand what you're getting at. In essence, what are you saying, that using the license as collateral?
And I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
The only way, it's a liquor store, so if you don't get a pledge on the liquor license, the only way to secure the liquor license, and all it does is give Rockland the power to stand in the position of the seller and sign that petition for transfer. And basically, it's a protection against the bankruptcy court. If the bankruptcy court sees that, like, if someone goes into bankruptcy, let's say they go into bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy, there's no pledge on that license, the bankruptcy court will come in here and tell the board who to give it to. So it's the bankruptcy court says if there's no pledge, if you don't follow the state rules to get a pledge, you, Rockland Trust, have absolutely no rights to it. But Rockland Trust can't come in here and delegate and dictate any terms. They have to come in here and say, you know, we found a buyer for this business, here they are, and we've signed a petition in their stead based on this pledge.
Understood.
Move we close the hearing.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would move we approve the transfer of the license as delineated on the application and additionally approve the pledge of the license to the Rockland Trust Company in the amounts as provided in the application.
Okay, let's take a vote on closing the hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll second Kevin's motion as far as the approval of license of the pledge.
Okay, any further discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
Best of luck.
They're both very
Larry.
happy they didn't have to speak. My bosses think I'm crazy that I go to 100 different communities, but I love sitting.
From Lynn down here.
Well, my family's from Abington.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Bye.
But I love watching.
Government.
Should be a town manager.
Good night.
You can have this job.
All right.
Yeah.
Kevin, what do you think? Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Okay. First, under action discussion items, we have the approval of minutes for the February 13th, 2012 open session. Did we all have a chance to look those over?
Move they be approved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. February 13th open session approved. Next on the agenda, we have approval to place a question on the ballot at the annual election, April 28th, 2012, to complete a feasibility study at the Frollo Middle School, 1071 Washington Street. Would anyone care to start this discussion?
Mr. Chairman, what we, I don't know if we have received a letter of request from
Yes.
the superintendent, but he had sent a letter requesting that the town place on the annual town election a question to seek a debt exclusion for $800,000 to perform a study. Now, this MSBA feasibility study indicates that the town will receive 54.16% reimbursement of the feasibility study of $800,000, or $433,280 of the $800,000 back from the state. This feasibility study mentions the middle school, the Frollo School, but the feasibility study will be conducted in an entire scope of all school buildings, not just Frollo School. And so the reason why the Frollo School is mentioned is I think that when the application was first submitted some time ago by the school committee on behalf of the town to MSBA, it was for them to look at the Frollo School. As a result, the scope of the feasibility study would be looking at all schools and all possibilities and coming up with the most economically feasible recommendation for the town to pursue. Whether it's a new middle school, whether it's a new high school, that has yet to be determined. The language of using the folio school, I think, is carryover language from when the request was first submitted by the school committee.
Thank you.
That language will not limit us as far as looking beyond the Foley Middle School?
Actually, the new regulations under MSBA require that the municipality looks at all possible requirements or all possible.
So why would it say this? Why would it say Folio in the language then?
Well, I thought it kind of explained that. I think that it basically became part of the initial language that was approved by MSBA, but the requirements now require that all of the school buildings be looked at, including the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. I don't know if we can change it and basically say,
no,
take the middle school, folio school out, but I think that the regulations now require that all of the buildings that are in control of the school are looked at so that the most economically feasible long-term solution to the school building needs of the town of Abington will be fulfilled through the study. It's not just limited to the Folio School. I don't know why the Folio School was mentioned. I kind of agree with you. I think that it probably shouldn't be, but it was as a result of, I think, the initial application.
I did ask the question, member of the school committee, and not for sure, but the response was because the original application went in like that, and it's just a follow through because, as you spoke earlier, it does, even though it mentions Folio School, because that's why I made the phone call, it seemed like we had already made a decision. Effectively, we haven't. We're just appeasing the state because that's what the application went in there for. So on file for doing that, but it does require us to study, which we want to do, all the needs of the school. So that's what I got out of it. Primarily because they initially put it in like that.
So that's what they said.
Thank you, Mike.
So that's what he just said.
Twice, yes.
Okay,
With that said, I'll make a motion that we
Beautiful.
approve the placement of a ballot question on the April town election, annual town election ballot in the form as recommended by the superintendent of schools.
second.
And as you know, in your packet of information, you do have the language for the ballot question, which does mention the Folio Middle School, but that all of the schools will be evaluated.
I'll second. I do have a couple of questions on it.
Okay.
As far as the borrowing, do you have any idea, have you looked that far ahead as to the term of the borrowing?
Yeah, we anticipate that the borrowing will we'll do short-term borrowing on this as a debt exclusion, and probably pay it off in 5 years or less.
When you determine what you're going to do, can you get us a cost as to what that would be on the average household?
We have provided that information to we have our weekly meetings with the superintendent and Felicia, and we have provided that information directly to them. I can get you a copy of that.
Yeah, I just would like the general public to know what that would be too. Just so.
We will obviously at town meeting have all of that information as part of the backup material for the question as to whether or not the town moves forward with it.
Okay.
You know, as part of the informational packet that we'll have at town meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. All right. Next on the agenda, we have a vote to authorize the treasurer to enter into an MWPAT interim loan in the amount of $510,745 for the Water Department's residual handler project. John, could you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the town originally authorized back in Article 26 of the April 9th, 2008 annual town meeting, $2 million. The town actually went out to borrow a little over 1.2 million of the 2 million authorization. They are now, the water department, under this interim loan, is requesting an additional $510,745, which in sum total is still under the total authorization that had been granted at town meeting back in 2008. The interest rate, incidentally, for all of those business folks out there having nothing better to do but to watch us on TV, would be really salivating over the interest rate. It's 0.15% per annum. You can't get that anywhere else. And that's because it's a low-interest loan that was written down by the state, and the net amount, the net percentage to the town after the write-down is 0.15% per annum. So it's cheap money. And the reason for this additional request is that when they initially went out to bid, the engineering firm doing the initial test borings went out and dug these test borings in the water, you know, where the sludge was settling at the bottom. However, when they tested, they did a comprehensive test analysis with these borings, but when they finally drained the pond, so to speak, to determine the actual amount of sludge, which they couldn't do until they're ready to do the work, they found areas which were much higher in depth than what they originally test bored for, and so consequently we have to go back after this extra money to complete the project. It's very low interest money, but more importantly, it is cheaper for the town to drain and dry the sludge for transportation purposes. It costs us less to do that, although we have an extensive amount of sludge that we did not initially anticipate when we first went out to borrow the 1.2 million.
Okay.
I hope that explains it.
Thank you, John. Any further questions about this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Any questions?
Anyone have a question?
No, I'm fine.
Would anyone like to make a motion to authorize the treasurer to enter into this interim
Do you
loan?
need this whole vote?
As presented.
Yeah, you can. I think that if you'd want to sit here and read it,
Keep you here another 15
I'll go home and come back in the morning when you can finish it.
I'll move that we approve the borrowing as delineated in the selectmen's vote that's attached to the package.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous. All right. Thanks. All right, great.
Sign one of each and just pass it. Actually, you can do it while I'm doing the town manager's budget.
Okay, why don't we
Expect
start?
about an hour and a half.
We'll start the FY 2013 budget discussion.
What's that?
You just make me happy passing that out.
Oh, God, yeah. Are you kidding me? Okay, there was a request to begin the discussion on the budget, which we were not, I had indicated earlier I wasn't going to do until we had the second draft. I had sent each board member a copy of the second draft of the warrant, of the budget for the town, which is broken down by department. But before I do that, I want to pass out the latest second draft of the percentage increase by department. And this obviously provides the board with a snapshot of where we stand on a department-by-department basis relative to the budget. The first category is town meeting, as you know, and you can look over to the far right column and you would see that the total overall budget is increasing 7.79%. The majority of that increase in the operating budget for the town rests in a couple of areas of the budget. There is close to a $2.4 million increase from the FY12 budget to the FY proposed 13 budget from the schools. The school department is requesting a $20,205,245 budget, which represents in my opinion, a substantial increase over the actual FY12 budget of $17,770,000. That equates out to a 13.7% increase. Now remember, our operating budget increase is 2.5% over our taxes, I'm sorry, not our budget, our taxes, property taxes, which represents a significant amount of local revenue that we need to balance the budget, increases 2.5% from one fiscal year to the next, exclusive of new growth. The second category of a significant increase is our pension amount. Our pension amount this year is increasing retirement. It's increasing from $1,720,829.19 to $1,910,832.49. That represents an 11.4% increase. Our requested budget in FY12, which is our current year of operation, is $39,857,605.84. The total budget request for FY13 is $42,963,484.24. As you can see from the general summary sheets that I have provided, the operating budget of the town is being driven by those two components, schools and retirement, as well as South Shore Vocational Tech. And South Shore Voc Tech, that increase, I don't know if I can come up with it right away, is almost $200,000 as well. Yes, it's going from 1.751 to 1.912. When we initially crafted the FY13 budget, which was in advance, well in advance of when we received our request from South Shore Voc Tech, we estimated about a 9% increase. And so the 9.15% comes as no surprise to us. And we've kind of made arrangements in our initial projections at 9%, so we weren't too far off in that regard. The other drivers of the budget are the fire department, and the reason why the fire department numbers are increasing deals primarily with the intergovernmental cost for dispatch, regional dispatch between Holbrook and the town of Abington, which is $100,000. The animal control budget is increasing about 36.30%, but it's a $14,000 budget going to $19,000 is a $5,500. Excuse me, there's about a $5,000 increase. Basically, most of that deals with additional hours for the animal control officer, who really is on call 24/7, and he crawls out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning to retrieve an animal that was hit in the road, to responding to a number of different calls. And we in Town Hall had figured out that he's working in excess of his current hours, and so we feel that the compensation, I think, is warranted. Highway construction and the highway budget itself is increasing. The proposed amount is $605,473 for personnel. We're proposing, that's a 15.57% increase. We're proposing to add some additional personnel to highway. That was an objective that I first outlined to the board when we talked about potential personnel increases. We expect in April to open up Station 2 when we get back to 5-man shifts, which I think we have not been at since 2008. We also have increased the snow removal budget 20%, which is a $20,000 increase from $100,000. And the reason for that, I think, is that when we averaged a 10-year cost for snow removal, the average cost is $236,000, so that we are obviously still significantly underfunding snow and ice. The veterans budget is increasing primarily in two areas. One is aid to veterans has gone up significantly. And we recently completed, actually aid to veterans is going from $78,000 to $86,000, and we receive 75% reimbursement from the state. We are also proposing a salary increase for the veterans agent as well. The library budget is increasing 6.44%, going from $421,000 to $449,000. This will be the first year, if we accept the proposed budget from the library, that we are not going to have to request a funding waiver from the state. Now, last year, not this year proposed, but last year, we had financed through the budget a significant increase to the operating budget of the library. That proposed budget for FY12 was $421,000. In FY11, as you can see in the summary sheet, it was $324,000. So we actually almost increased $100,000 just in the budget of the library. Now that includes personal services, purchase services, supplies, and other such expenses. Now, we are required, the library is required to set aside a certain percentage of their total operating budget for supplies, for books and materials of that nature. As you can see, in 2011, there was $60,715 reserved for supplies, which included books and magazines and other such items. We are now requesting $80,632, which is in line with the percentage that is required for a $449,000 budget for the library. As we look at, I'm bouncing around a little bit, as we look at the highway budget and the snow removal, I did forget to mention that we have increased our street lighting budget from $94,720 to $99,720. Which represents a $5,000 increase. And that is for what we anticipate electricity costs to be for the same amount of lighting that we have in the town of Abington. There's an actual no increase in personnel for the Selectmen's budget. Finance Committee has a 0% increase. The reserve fund is projected to be funded at $20,000. We are not requesting any increase in the personnel for salaries for the town accountants department. As you know, we have an obligation at the special within the annual to come up with some additional money, which we have identified a source of funding for the contract for the town accountant, the buyout, and so forth, which would be budgeted in FY 13. So there will be an adjustment number for the sick leave buyback and all of the other requirements of the town accountant's contract. We have a slight 4.92% increase in the collector treasurer's budget. Town council, we're level funding that at $54,005. We may or may not need additional money. I think we are going to need some additional money for council for FY 12. Information technology, we're looking at a significant increase here as we begin to roll out some of our technology programs that we're looking to fund. We're looking to fund an interrelational database for financing that will provide us with greater reporting flexibility on a cost-by-cost basis for the current budget. That information in the information technology budget is capturing the upgrades to all of our software and as well as the new conversion and update from our current financial software package. The town has decided to stay with KVS. However, we have been operating under a COBOL backbone with our software package, which I don't know if anyone here remembers COBOL, at least none of our, I'm sure if you're over 55 and you would remember COBOL, but the new relational database system is Oracle. In 2004, our vendor went to COBOL, from COBOL to Oracle as a backbone, which is a preferred backbone for interrelational databases, in my opinion. We have purchased all of the modules, so there is no cost for upgrades. However, we have never purchased the Oracle backbone, which is required to get us to that next level. And so we are purchasing Oracle, which is about $15,000. It's, I think, $700 a license, and there's 50 licenses, which equates out to about $35,000. The town clerk's budget is increasing 1.58% from $97,000 to $99,000. We went for a reserve fund transfer of approximately $8,000 with the town clerk's budget because of the March presidential primary. At one point in time when we were fashioning the budget for the town back last year, there was very strong indication from the state that they were looking to save about $10 million, and in doing so, they were going to combine the March primary with another election to save money, but they decided that they would want to keep the Super Tuesday motif, and that therefore resulted in additional money that we did not anticipate in the budget at that point in time. Planning board, zoning board remains relatively the same. There's a slight 9.7% increase in town office building from $72,000 to $79,000, which represents some contract requirements that we have initiated for our sprinkler system, our alarm system. North River Collaborative is $5,500. It used to be $16,500, but the state decided to reduce reimbursement to cities and towns under Medicaid reimbursement, and as a result of that, our figure was adjusted correspondingly. We the police department is requesting a 4.56% increase from 2.616 million to 2,735,960. None of these figures incorporate any kind of a collective bargaining salary adjustment other than the ones that I have mentioned previous, which are not collective bargaining agreements. So before we accept the FY 13 budget, we are going to have to discuss probably in executive session an increase, anticipated increase for collective bargaining agreements, because we're looking at potentially settling some agreements for some short money, hopefully. However, we do anticipate, in order for us to align all of our collective bargaining agreements, some of our current contracts will require a 2-year agreement and then a 3-year agreement for FY 13 and beyond, so that we're all aligned in the same cycle for collective bargaining agreements. Gas inspection and building inspection services is going from 118,000 to 127,000. It's an 8.8% increase. I've covered South Shore Voltech Highway. The waste collection budget right now is budgeted at $1,046,985. We anticipate March 1st to receive bids for automated trash collection at curbside, and based on the level of activity that I have received as far as questions are concerned, the number of bids that have been taken out, we have 12 bids or 13 bidders that have taken out bid proposals. So we anticipate a very competitive process. We are using, for the first time, mass bid for the collection of our bids and the electronic posting of our bids, which means that on March 1st at 10:01, we will have an electronic transmission of all of our bids, our alternative bids and everything, itemized for us from the lowest to the highest bid in each of the categories that we have our price sheets for. So this is a new and exciting bid process, which is accepted by the Attorney General's office, the Inspector General's office, for procurement bids for the future, which means that it cuts down on paper. It's good for the environment. It helps with our recycling. It's indicative of what we should be doing, which we're going out for more competitive bids on trash collection and recycling. So, having said that, we have $600 for veteran lots. We are showing an increase also in the budget in FY 13 for parades, because this is our year. It's the third year of a cycle between Whitman, Rockland, and Abington to share in the cost of the veterans parades and memorial parades that we hold here with the other communities involved. The Rec Commission is showing a slight decrease here. As you know, we have an issue with a health issue with one of our employees there. We're working with the Park and Rec Commission to get a better handle on what we're going to do. We are going to propose, and I have spoken with Mr. Wakeland and another member of the Park and Rec Board, that we are thinking of folding the lawn, the park mowing initiatives under highway, creating 2 full-time positions, which could then, in the wintertime, be utilized for wintertime activities. We have already incorporated some of the mechanical repair to our lawnmowers for the spring and summer through the highway department. I am also going to propose a part-time clerk for the highway, for the Park and Rec office. There, in the absence of the full-time director who is on paid sick leave, that we're going to need somebody to man the offices as the springtime approaches and residents are calling for information with respect to Park and Rec. So there is an operational issue that we have to address, and we're also going to propose an interim assistant director to fill in for Mr. Shirokas during his absence. So that's where we stand. That number, that 104 number, does not reflect the full-time positions or an interim part-time. Historical Commission for FY13 has not requested any money and actually asked that we not fund the Historical Commission budget, which we funded last year at $800. I am going to propose in the FY13 budget to match the grant that the state, the town receives from the state for the Arts Council. I think it's about $2,800. So we're going to, whatever that money is, we're going to propose to match it in the FY13 budget, providing more grant opportunities to local artists to do some work of significance on behalf of the town. The interest on debt is going down a little bit from $665,255 to $572,986. County tax is up a little bit. County tax assessments are up. County assessments are up. Retirement, I've gone over. And speaking with Leo, he believes that we're going to have to maintain at least $100,000 to $107,000 in unemployment. Our health insurance, as you know, is in limbo. We are starting our countdown, our 30-day PEC countdown process with the unions. We're looking at a number of options, including plan design changes. And that is moving along as we had expected. We're going to be over based on our appropriation for Medicare. We might have to make an adjustment in that category. These expenditures that you're looking at in this summary sheet are as of 12/31/2011, which is approximately 5 months. The final page, or no, the second to the final page, we have liability insurance. We are proposing to go out to bid for FY13 for property casualty and liability insurance. Dory will be handling that initiative for us. We have other incidental items of $424,318. Last year, that number was $924,318. Ambulance receipts, we are proposing to have a review of our ambulance charges for FY13. We have hired a new company through a bid process to provide us with billing services, so we anticipate with the Station 2 opening, we anticipate additional revenue from the second ambulance, and we hope that we're able to convince the board that we're going to need to increase Medicare reimbursement amounts. Conservation budget has remained relatively the same. There's a slight increase. The same for golf course enterprise. These are the enterprise accounts. Sewer is showing a slight decrease of 1.96%. Water is showing a slight decrease of 7.62%. The overall budget, including all of the enterprise accounts, proposed total is $48,232,606, which represents a 6.36% increase. If you look at the operating budget for the town, which shows a 7.79% increase, when you add the budget increases or decreases for the enterprise accounts, which have really been level funded with the exception of water, the actual increase, net increase is 6.36%. Well above 2.5%. We're going to be working with the school department and some of the departments to see where we can achieve some efficiencies, whether it's a reduction or an increase in savings on our trash budget, which we will not realize, I don't believe, until FY14, because in FY13, we're going to have to pay for the trash barrels that we're issuing under the program, but we do anticipate our tipping fee to come in very competitively and our cost in the long term to be less over time than what we're currently paying for trash removal as our tonnage goes down and our recycling increases. And just so there is no confusion whatsoever from members of the Board of Health, we have always proposed that the barrels will be purchased by the town of Abington and not by the individual taxpayers. So that completes the expenditure portion of the budget. I do have more. Do you have any questions so far on the town budget pieces?
Mike?
What is other items to be raised, $424,000? What's that?
Those are things that are under, I can get you a breakdown. I don't have that breakdown with me tonight.
I don't ever recall seeing that before.
Isn't that the cherry sheet? What's other items to be raised on the cherry sheet?
Yeah.
Cherry sheet offsets, right? Snow and ice deficit,
Okay.
overlay.
That's why the big
It
drop.
was five.
Allowance for abatements and exemptions.
Right. All of that is part of that category. I can get you a breakdown by dollar amount.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that the other amounts to be raised, number, what page is that on? What page is that on? Yeah, other amounts to be raised is $424,318. Last year, in FY12, it was $924,000. I can get you a breakdown of that for the next meeting.
One other question. How far out of sync are we, actually?
I won't know that until early next week as we go through the revenue portion, which I do want to pass out to you right now, and I do want to talk about debt. So,
This budget here, is this what the departments are proposing, or is this your proposal?
no, these are the department's requests.
Okay,
My proposals are
Okay.
not anywhere in those items at this point, not until we match up our expenditure to revenue.
Okay.
Oh. Is there an extra copy down there? I have one here anyway. Don't worry about it.
There's a few extra copies.
No, that's all right. It's a 5-member board, last time I checked. I must have made 8 copies.
No.
The drivers, if you look at, as our year-to-date, as of January 31st, 2012, which is the far right column, and you go to any of the revenue drivers, you will see that we have collected year-to-date which is about halfway through the fiscal year, $26,119,655. Our sum actual for 6/30/2011 is $39,402,959. We budgeted $38,862,512. So we always want to be on the plus side of revenue to budget. And our sum for FY 12, June 30th, assuming that our actual as of 1/31/2012 comes into play, we should be about $181,000 above our actual budget for June 30th, 2012. So we're doing pretty well. We do anticipate our commitment for motor vehicle excise to be up a little under $100,000, but, you know, a little bit more than what we had anticipated when we set forth the 2012 budget. So based on the trends that we're looking at as far as revenue is concerned, we're not doing too badly, but we are not leaving money on the table, so to speak. We are using all of our revenue sources, and certainly could use additional revenue sources if we had any available to us. But be that as it may, we are going to work within the budget that we have currently. The drivers for revenue appear to be the Board of Health, the building inspector, the treasurer collector, obviously. If you look at the second page under treasurer collector, you'll see that our motor vehicle excise, penalty and interest, it's about $18,000. We expect to collect about $29,000, so we expect to be right on target with what we our sum actual for 6/30/2011. We expect to collect a little bit more than $100,000, or about $100,000, than what we collected in motor vehicle excise. We expect 1.572702. We expect to collect a little bit more than that. What you see for motor vehicle excise is the $328,994, which is ahead of our initial small collection. We have several motor vehicle collections. The big one went out in February, so we'll see those numbers in March, and we do expect a little bit more than 100,000, or somewhere around 100,000 in motor vehicle excise revenue.
John, if I could, on the tax title, is that, it's very good, obviously, 147,000. Is that, to your knowledge, and I don't know if you know, is that by redemption, or did he sell those notes?
Are you talking about the
on the tax title, under the treasurer collector? Shows an actual as of 1/31/12 of $147,088. I'm just curious, is it because of the improving economy that those have been redeemed, or is it that he may have sold those off?
I think that we had increased the collector treasurer's budget to aggressively go after delinquencies, and I think some of that, some of the increase is as a result of that action, but also because the economy is slowly, ever so slowly beginning to improve, and we are collecting on a lot of that outstanding debt.
Okay, thank you.
And kind of opposite to that, John, if you're just on the building inspector, the building permits, sum of actual as of January 31st is 48,000.
We expect to collect probably about 143.
That's $100,000 less than where you were, almost $100,000 less than where you were anticipating for the end of the year, I know, but that's...
Well, spring's coming.
Yeah, I guess.
But I guess in concert with that, I guess your general fund revenues look pretty good and pretty much on target. In terms of, with, again, looking into the crystal ball, if you will, with state aid, is it your have you gotten down that road to make a determination yet, the way the state is not acting on the budget right now? Do you think we would be prepared to go forward in April, or perhaps at a later date, or is it too early in your estimation?
I'm starting to have those discussions with the Finance Committee. If we feel comfortable with the revenue projections that we're coming up with local, my assumption is that we are not going to receive any additional aid than what the governor's numbers are indicating. However, I don't believe that there will be a significant decrease from the governor's numbers. So I'm not ready, I'm not at this point yet going to make a prediction as to whether or not we can meet the April 2nd town meeting deadline. But if not, I would say before the end of April, we should be able to finish up town meeting, if not sooner.
Good, thank you.
Thank you for this format, John. It's very easy to read.
The format's good.
It's the best it's ever been.
It is, it's excellent.
Well, it's not where I want it, and I think that once we get to the Oracle database and we get to the new KVS system,